course, was our guest in the neighborhood from several years ago now, performing at the Don't Tell Mama Club, where he performs basically like every week or every other week, and has been for many years with his show, Seth's Talent Show. Seth Bisenhersh, who apparently is not gay. Could have
No, I'm not gay at all.
Person, human being, person. Welcome, by the way. Shalom to the neighborhood.
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to you too. You do seem Jewish also.
Yeah, I guess if we were really that religious, we wouldn't be doing this on a Saturday, but apparently we're not, so it's all good.
So essentially, you're a yidrosexual. You're Jewish, and you love the theater. You write your theater musical songs. So you are probably often mistaken for being, but you're not. But you're not. So as a matter of fact, we'll talk. There's a theme in one of your shows where you had a girlfriend and she dumped you and it sent you into a terrible spiral. But
that was real life. That wasn't a show.
Yeah, it was one of your cabaret things where you're talking about your life.
Yes. That was a terrible year. You've done your research. I love this.
Yeah, I do. I have nothing else to do all week. Passover was over. I'd done everything for the holiday. I think, let me just read books and books about Seth Bisen-HERSH.
Oh, that's lovely.
Am I getting your name pronounced correctly?
Yeah, Bisen-HERSH. That was correct that time.
Bisen-HERSH.
Bisen-HERSH. Yeah, I respond to everything. You could just be like, hey, you. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's me.
But how do you have a hyphenate name? How did that come out?
Well, my mother decided not to change her name. So she kept Bisen and my dad is Hirsch, and they smushed them together. And I think it makes me interesting. 3-name composers are very in vogue, Jason Robert Brown, Ricky
Amadeus Mozart. That's a good one. Von Beethoven. I'm liking this.
Ricky and Jordan.
Who?
Ricky and Jordan is 3 names.
That's right. This is true. And so it's a thing. Now, how long have you been composing? How long have you been creating?
Oh, I guess my first song I wrote when I was 13, so it's been years at this point. It's been a while.
Not a girl. You can tell us how old we are.
I'm a little bit over 40. I don't know. My mom would never ever say her age, and I think she passed that down to me. But I think I look good. No, it was her birthday, and I wrote her a song for her birthday, and then I was like, oh, I don't have to pay people gifts, or I don't have to buy gifts or anything. I could just write them songs. So then I just started writing songs for everyone's birthday, and it was a cheap way of making a living. So
see, you are obviously Jewish. There's no question about that now.
That's very true.
So how was your bar mitzvah? Do you remember anything about your bar mitzvah?
Oh, my bar mitzvah, we're almost at the 30th anniversary of that. Well, now I've given away my age.
Pretty clear,
yeah. We actually, we hired a rent-a-rabbi because we didn't belong to a temple or anything. And she was very good, and we would go over to her place once a week to learn the Haftorah portion. And I remember I did it for the money. And then I had that in my speech, and my mom made me cut it. But I was like, this is true. I did do it for the money. She's like, you can't say that. That's uncouth. But yeah, I guess, she was stifling my humor. But I could say it now because she won't watch anything on Facebook. So
well, the rebelliousness of of making funny songs and dirty songs and songs for musical theater, did that come from being from a middle class Jewish upbringing? You don't say this. We don't talk about money. We don't say this in public. We don't talk about the family here. Is that a response?
It's possible. I don't know. I was picked on a lot through like middle school. And I think that made me be funny. I think a lot of comedians have that background story. Oh. I had to use it as a defense mechanism. So I think that I've built comedy into a huge defense mechanism. And when anything gets serious, I make puns. So even when I wasn't sleeping for that year that you mentioned, I was writing, well, not all funny songs, but I wrote a few funny songs in that year too, because that's how I process the world, is trying to make some sort of humor about it.
You know, we all say that about they're bullied, then they turn to comedy. And did it ever actually get you out of a situation where you would have had the shit beaten out of you, but you said something funny and they kind of or they just, oh, he's so weird, just let him be.
I don't think I was, as you said, middle class. So I never actually was going to get like punched in the face. People would just make snide comments all the time. So then I would be funny in class. And I think that would help ameliorate the situation. But my grandmother was also one of the funniest people I knew, and she survived the Holocaust. So I think it's just a defense mechanism that has been passed down to me throughout the generations.
What stories did your grandma tell you about being, I guess, in a camp, or if she wasn't in a camp, then she just.
Oh, she was in two camps. She was in Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. Uh, she used to go around so she didn't really say anything until I think my dad was in his 50s. And then she started to open up about her life. And so she was interviewed. You can find that somewhere. I have on my music YouTube page a grandmother tribute playlist. I actually did a tribute speech to her at Auschwitz in 2016, a few months after her death. I had been going on this trip to Poland, and then the woman who runs it asked me to speak since she had recently passed away. So but there's a link on that video to her, and she was on cable TV, and she would go into high schools and Hebrew schools, and she would just go everywhere. Actually, this one high school, one of the questions they asked her was, did you get to go to a prom? And of course, she didn't get to go to high school. So they actually threw my grandmother and Holocaust survivors to prom. This was in North New Jersey. I don't remember when, in 2008
Actually,
and
the
9.
only weird part about that is to get in and out of the gym and the prom, they stamp your hand. And she says, no, 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 no.
Oh gosh,
Too many
that's dark humor. No, but she always, somehow carried on and made jokes, and it was like her joke was, in my life I've had 3 rings, an engagement ring, a marriage ring, and lots of suffer ring.
She stole that from Abbott and Costello, but that's fine.
Well, to me, she wrote that joke, but apparently, if you Google it, other people have said it.
Yeah, Abbott and Costello, I'm sure, stole it from vaudeville. Is that, or maybe they stole it from her. Abbott and Costello did do a gig at Auschwitz in 1942. And so
Oh, really?
They went there. They did not go over well because people were, dying while watching. They were dying. People were dying. It was not.
People were dying to get out, I think is the joke
Oh,
there. There's the joke you're looking for.
when you went to Auschwitz, is there anything fun to do? I wanted to go, but yeah, you go through the. Is there anything fun? Is there a ride?
No, there's nothing fun in Auschwitz. They have a really, really a room with they list everyone, like a huge, huge book. So I was able to look up all my grandmother's relatives. So I guess you can say that was interesting. I don't know if I would say fun. We did go to Krakow after, where they were doing the Klezmer Festival, and that was fun. But I don't believe the trip does it anymore because of security concerns. But when I went in 2016, we did. That was fun, and I stayed. It was like a all day thing, and I just stayed all day, and it was a really nice catharsis. But I always pair my Holocaust trips with fun. So that same trip after I did Poland, I visited a friend in Vienna. And so I did Vienna, and I went to Salzburg for 2 days. And then I went to Prague. So it was that was the fun part of the trip. Like after I did the Germany trip, I went to Paris for the weekend. So I like to treat myself to,
Basically, you went to Germany and then you annexed Paris, which
exactly.
is what you do. This is how that works. We're talking with Seth Biesen. Is it Biesen-HERSH or Biesen-HERSH? How do you
I say Biesen-HERSH.
Biesen-HERSH.
But as I said, I'll respond to anything. So you could just be like, "Hey, Jew, how's it going?" And
Hey,
like,
Jew, how's
what's
it going
on?
with you? So did you go to university for college for music, or did you study other stuff?
Well, I went to MIT, which you might have heard of. I try to draw. I'm not a Harvard student. Harvard people drop Harvard every other sentence, but MIT were way more down to earth, and you can't buy your way in. But I got a degree in computer science because that's what everyone was getting those days. And then I also got a degree in music composition Because if you're going to pay 120,000, which of course it's a lot more, now it's like 200,000. But when I went to college in my day, it was only 120,000. And I was like, I'm going to get two majors. And I almost minored in theater as well, but I would have had to take this class where you're basically the theater department's bitch and you have to like be their slave. And I was like, you know what? I don't need a minor in theater. Of course, you don't need a degree in anything for this industry. But so I got the degree in computer science and the degree in music. And I almost minored in theater.
As an adult for the past, say, 20, 30 years, which has been the more useful and the more lucrative, since you have not just a theater degree, oh, I can go teach theater, or it helps me audition, but I've got something where I can program computers, oh, and I can also draw, write people's sheet music. Which
I don't think I've made much money doing any of that stuff at all. I got my master's at NYU in music technology to try to combine the two, but basically, that just led to me playing for voice lessons and learning, oh, I could just play piano for a living, which is what I did all through high school anyway. And I was like, this is really lovely. Why would I ever get a job if I can play piano? So I think my entrepreneurial spirit, maybe I learned something from MIT. And certainly I have a lot of friends from MIT who have lucrative careers, which has also helped my career, just being friends with them. But I don't know, the music composition I definitely use. It's just, I wouldn't call it lucrative. I think playing piano has been what I've made money for. I did also start writing crossword puzzles, and I've had 3 published in the LA Times, and my 4th one just got accepted by Universal. Actually, I just got the email last night. And I actually started getting hired to do puzzles. I did puzzles. My friend is a wedding planner, and she hired me to write puzzles. I've also been hired to write wedding jingles. So I'm just running the gamut right now in terms of everything. The other thing that NYU got me actually is I was interning for a studio. So Milrose Music is where we recorded the Love Quirks off-Broadway cast album. But I met him, and I met Lawrence O'Keefe, who's a great composer. And then I met Seth Rudetsky, and Seth Rudetsky at the time had just lost the person who was videoing for his Chatterbox show at Don't Tell Mama, and he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, Seth and Seth, why not? And we have the same birthday. I thought that was Kismet or Bashert. That's the word for it.
Yes.
I thought it was Bashert. And so for 7 years, I was his unpaid intern, and I videoed all his shows, and I got to be around Broadway. But that's where I met Sidney Meyer, the booking manager at Don't Tell Mama. He's been there since the 90s, but that's when I started doing cabaret in 2002. So it all caused that. If I hadn't gone to NYU, I wouldn't have fell into playing piano. I would not have stumbled upon cabaret if I hadn't interned for Peter and met Seth. So you have to believe it all happens for some reason. And even if it doesn't, you can try to find a reason anyway.
Well, tell us about your cabaret show, and then we'll get to Love Quirks. But the show that you do, it's what, Tuesday nights
Tuesday nights at 7. I've been there since 2007. I started every other week. This week is number 678. I see this is 847. I appreciate counting. We're both counters.
Yes.
I count a lot of things.
I'm a deli counter myself, but anyway.
Yes, I count a lot of things. So this one is 678. But I've done an average one a week. Some weeks I do 2. There were weeks that I did 3. When I was younger, I could handle 3. 2 a week. I'm doing 2 a week this spring, and it's a lot of work.
Well, it's not it's called a talent showcase. So is it sort of like an open mic, or do you have your friends do?
Well, it started just as my friends. It's definitely not an open mic. Sydney wanted me to change the name, but it's been 15 years, and I was like, we can't change the name after 15 years. It is a showcase. It's like a musical theater showcase, like the kids get when they graduate college. They do a showcase, so you can invite industry and agents and casting directors who will cancel on you the last minute. But we did have a manager a few weeks ago, so occasionally, they do show up. But more importantly, these days, it's the video footage, because so many people cast that way. And I started offering the video, I think, in 2009. So I've had about 3,500 singers, and they sing 2 songs and they talk in between, and I want them to be interesting. So it's not, a lot of those cabarets are like, they're very recitally, and people are like, this next song is from Wicked by Stephen Schwartz, who
Right, yeah.
is also a Pisces, and he's a very nice guy. But I encourage them to talk about themselves. Like, I love talking about myself. As I say, I'm a me historian, which is a me historian. I'm my favorite topic, because I might be a little narcissistic and self-centered, but I have a heart of gold. But enough about me, more about me. So the shows just developed because I had been playing for other kind of showcases very similar, and the actors had to bring like 12 to 15 people, and they had to pay me as in addition to that. And so I started doing them in Mamas with this guy Matt, and it was easier because he wasn't as stringent. And there was actually a few who were really, really stick up the ass, would be the expression. And I believe I put them out of business. But like, I remember one time I showed up at 1:59 for a 2 p.m. show, and she like reamed me. And I was like, I live down the street. I've been doing shows at Downtown Mama for years, and we never start on time. And she's like, my shows start on time. You will never work for me again. And then I started doing my own show, and she doesn't do shows anymore. So, I mean, it worked out. But first, as I said, I started with my friends, and then I was doing like every other week. And then I put up an ad in Backstage and Playbill, and I started using people I didn't know. And then between that and then referrals, it's just kind of like spread out to the point where I only put up an ad like 2, at most 3 times a year, because I just have so many people who want to keep doing them. And, it's when you're on stage that much, it just becomes, I have this level of insouciance now about just being there, and I just have a good time. And I used to stress out about everything because, everything in cabaret, there will be a thing that goes wrong every week. But at this point, I've had most of it happen. I mean, certainly.
Okay, so tell me now, what are one or two of the most wild, crazy things that went
Oh gosh,
when
well,
you were doing your show?
we had a girl faint. Like, she sang her song and was fine, and then during her patter, she I guess she got really hyperventilated about the fact that some people, they don't mind singing, but when they have to be on stages themselves, it's hard for them. And that's like, you need to be comfortable in your skin to portray other people. When you portray other people, you find facets of yourself. That's what Meryl Streep does. But a lot of people think it's about putting on an act and putting on an affectation, which it's not. So I tell people it needs to be inside out, and you need to find pieces of yourself in whoever you're playing, which is what something like actually Beanie and Funny Girl, I read an interview with her. She was saying she was finding Beanie and Fanny instead of Beanie and Barbara and Fanny, which is great.
I got
So
Beanie and Weenie, but that's
yes,
just my diet.
that's exactly true. So I feel like, it gives people the opportunity to be comfortable in their skin. But yes, so when she got to the part where she was talking, she just freaked out and she went down. And apparently it's just something that happens to her sometimes. We called the ambulance, but she was fine. And we just kept going with the show. And afterwards she was like, I'm so embarrassed. I apologize. And like, what happens. Another week, I won't say her name, but I have a stripper who's done a few of my shows. Like, that's her day job or night job. It would be a night job. And she always pays me if she owes me money in singles. And so one time she's just counting out singles, and I was just like, okay, then now I've seen it all. And then sometimes in the winter,
you smell each bill? Can you tell where they put it? It's like,
I don't know.
This was in the bra. This was.
They
in the
really
bra.
need to be cleaned. That's like, I've been watching the last season of Ozark. That's like what he does. He cleans the bill for the drug cartel. But so yeah, and then there was
awesome. Yes.
in the winter, sometimes it's really cold. There was one time the heat was just not working at all, and you could see everyone's breath the whole show, and that was a little cold.
That's cool. Now, before we're having so much fun talking with Seth Biesen-HERSH, but the main thing is not only can people see you every Tuesday, just about every Tuesday, 7 o'clock at Don't Tell Mamas, but you've got a musical that has been in the works and being done and then not done and here and there. You've got it on your hat. It's hold it up closer because we can't. It's very Well,
If
now
I
it's
go
come.
too close, my background goes rid
Yeah,
of
well,
it.
there we go. Okay, stop it there. I guess that'll close enough. Love Quirks, as opposed to Love Hurts. Love Quirks, which, wait, like you did this back in when 2014 was the first time it was produced, or
The first time was 2010. So in 2010, song cycles were very popular, and I still don't understand why they're popular because for me, the best part of the cabaret is that we're talking and we reveal some deep hidden truths about yourselves. And I like the setup, but a song cycle is basically a cabaret and you cut all the talking and you just sing through. And so at that point, I had maybe 200 songs that I really liked. And I was doing these Broadway concerts with Broadway stars doing them we did for my cat Smee, who fortunately passed away in November. He had FUS, feline neurological syndrome, and the Humane Society saved his life. So I would do this annual benefit for them called Broadway Meows, which we would do a week after Broadway Barks, because Bernadette Peters also shares my birthday with Seth Rudetsky and myself, and Gavin Creel, not Gavin Creel,
really are not
Gavin
gay. You
Cloud,
really, maybe you, as
Mercedes Rule.
you really ought to be gay. I'm telling you. If you know, just the fact that you know when Bernadette Peters' birthday is, and that it falls on your birthday, and Seth Rudetsky. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean,
I love Bernadette Peters, though. I mean,
yeah.
she's hot. You watch some of her old movies, and it's like, wow.
She got talk about things.
Yeah, I've always loved Bernadette. So I don't think loving Bernadette is gay. I never cared for Bette Midler, and that's how you know I'm straight. She doesn't do it for me.
What about Judy Garland? Ever get a Woody for Judy?
No, I like Judy Garland, but Bernadette is really my bae.
Okay.
That's what the kids say. My
So
bae.
I'm sorry, you were saying, what the hell were we just talking about?
We were talking about Love Quirks, and
yes,
so
Love Quirks, your show. Yes.
here comes my cat Joni. Look
Oh,
at that.
cat. Yeah,
This is her Zoom debut. She usually
just
disappears when I'm doing these things. That's incredible. You guys got to see Joni today. Yeah, so sorry, Joni. What I was saying was I did a song cycle. So I was walking down Broadway talking to my friend Aviva, and I was like, all these kids today are doing song cycles, and I have so many songs. And in the Broadway concerts, we did Broadway Meows and Broadway Can for the City Harvest. We had so much fun. We decided to do a can rating drive in December, and I did those for 10 years before I was like, I'm over this. I've done them. I've done 20 concerts and I'm done. But I asked all my Broadway friends to sing, and I got videos of them, like, Kate Rockwell singing Hey has 20,000 views. So I realized that people were doing all my quirky love songs. And I was saying to Aviva, I could just do a cabaret of my quirky love songs because I have so many of them. That's like my genre. Seth writes quirky love songs. So I put, and I was walking, I said, I'll just call it Love Quirks, and it'll be about the quirks of love. And that was an aha moment. I get a lot of aha moments while walking or when I'm in the shower or walking in the shower, which is hard to do. And so I stuck about 20 of those songs together. I decided to make it a 4-person thing, but for the first night I had 20 people in the concert because that's the way you get people at Don't Tell Mama. You need a cast of 20. And Kate Rockwell was in it. And so was my friend Brian Charles Rooney, who was in Three Penny Opera. And then my friend Brian Childers, who I met because he did Broadway Meows, because his co-star of Danny, he was in Danny and Sylvia at St. Luke's Theater for 5 years with Kimberly Faye Greenberg, who I've been friends with for years.
Friend of the neighborhood. She's been on the program.
Definitely in the neighborhood, yes. A nice Jewish girl. I've been playing Kim Stanley's show, actually. We've been taking that around the country, but that's another story, never mind. Anyway, Brian was in this 20-person version of this 4-person show, and I had written a few songs for that concert that I thought there were holes. And Brian was like, we need to do the 4-person version and see what that looks like. And for some reason, this art gallery in Soho had reached out to me in spring of 2011 and said, we'll give you the space for free. We want to bring in more theater here. We'll split the door with you 50-50. And I was like, I'm not turning down free theater space. So we did a 4-person version of just the song cycle. And we ended up cutting a song, and I put in another song instead. This is all in my book, The Making of a Musical, which I haven't published yet, but I was going to publish and then we shut down, but I have it all. And I actually did the Facebook Live series where I talk about this sort of stuff. So then after that production in the spring of 2011, people loved it and were like, we want to know who these characters are. And it just so happens that Brian's brother, Mark, is a screenwriter and playwright. So Brian called Mark and said, I think you should come in and flesh these characters out. And Mark came on my podcast last season or 2 seasons ago, and he talked about how he had a whiteboard on these songs and these characters. And I don't know, he's a fucking genius. He took the score that was existing and he wrote a book that worked. And we did a reading in 2011 at Shetler, which is no longer there. This whole story becomes places that are no longer there. And people loved it.
Theater. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up getting, a few investors, but not enough to actually move to St. Luke's, which we were trying. So after that, we did the concept album. And I don't remember, I think we took a couple, then the year I didn't sleep. So that derailed everything in my life. But at the end of that period, Brian worked with this guy. I'm not going to say any names because they all turned out to be flakes, but he ended up working with a guy who was like, I want to move your show off Broadway. Spoiler, he didn't not, but we ended up getting the Electra Theater, which is also that's now a Chick-fil-A. We got that for a reading in spring 2014. And by that point, we reconfigured, we cut songs that didn't work with what we were doing. And I wrote some new songs and I fiddled with some lyrics and we did a great reading. And people, again, really seemed to love it. But the guy ended up, he was offering us the space, but he was going to have his own show. And then he was going to give us all the crappy times. And we didn't want to raise money to have crappy times. And so his co-producer was like, why don't you just do it yourself? This happened to me with the showcases too. People are like, just do it yourself. And then I'm like, oh, I can do it myself. I'm a very capable person. So we ended up doing a Kickstarter that summer and raising $10,000. And we put on a 3-week run at Shetler in their bigger theater in 2014, September 2014. And I invited Stephen Sondheim and he couldn't come. By that time, he was only coming to the city Tuesday and Wednesday, and we were running Thursday through Monday. So we did that 3-week run. It went really well. We got a bunch of people who were interested in investing and a bunch of great reviews. And then we just did not have enough money to move the show at that point. And that's just the reality of theater. So at that point, we actually had interest in doing a movie version. And so we started writing the movie version and I wrote a new song, which is fantastic that no one's heard. Because I'm saving it for when we finally do a movie version. And then that producer ended up having a second kid and said, I can't be an independent producer anymore. I'm going to go teach at a film school because I have to support my family. So that left us in the lurch again. Oh, I forgot 2015. 2015, I had an intern on the production 2014 who decided he wanted to be a producer. So we did a new reading in 2015, and between those readings, we hired a dramaturg. The wonderful Jessica Reddish came in to dramaturg, and that really helped Mark a lot because he ended up moving the title song into the middle of the show where it works so much better, and we wrote an actual opening number for the show. And I think in general, the beginning and the end of the show were the hardest parts and got rewritten the most. And most of the middle has stayed the same since 2014. It's just the first 2 scenes and the last scene. And then finally a little bit of the middle. But so back where I was, that fell through. And then I focused, I did UCB for a year. I did their program and I did some classes at Barrow Group and I was done writing and I said, I'm going to be an actor now. Spoiler alert, being an actor is even harder than being a writer. So by the end, I had this dream in the summer of 2019 that I had a dream that we were going to do the show off Broadway starring Kristen Bell. And I woke up and I said, we have to get Kristen Bell on the line. She's going to star in this. And of course, she was unavailable, slash we couldn't track her down. But that reopened Love Quirks for me. And I said, you know what, guys, we're going to do another reading. So by that point, there was this really cute space, which is also not there anymore, called the Dramatist Guild Foundation. They have moved, but haven't announced their new space. That was right by the Dollar Pizza on 40th and 9th. And they offered free spaces to do readings. And we had done 2 readings of my other musical, The Diamond is Big as the Ritz there, which is another thing I had been working on. Right. Of course, also my sitcom pilot was in there at some point, 2016. So I keep busy. I just circled back. So I said, look, I can get this space for free. Why don't we try one more time? And I got a couple Broadway people to do the reading this time. I said, let's bump up the quality, not the quality, but, the names, because their 2014 run was non-union. So let's see if I can get a couple Broadway names to do this reading. And we did the reading, and we added we aged the characters up because it had been a few years and the actors had aged. And we thought, why don't we just
at this point? Yeah.
Let's just age them. Well, they'll be 70 by the time we get off Broadway. But, so we aged them up, which really helped, I think, give the characters gravitas. And one of our friends had been going through this terrible divorce, and we wrote it into the show. And we added for one of the characters this really great song called Waking, about going through a divorce, which she was always not dating an anti-men in the show. And now we know why. It's because she was going through this divorce. And then we made it so Chris, instead of just having a breakup, it's now the first line of the show is, my best friend saved me from getting married by sleeping with my fiance. And so that's how the show opens now, and it's so much tighter. We added an overture.
One line can. Now I have one thing I do have to unfortunately stop you here because we have guests coming into the room to play.
Oh no!
Yeah, we're kind of up on our half.
Well, the happy ending is just the reading went well. We opened off Broadway in 2020. We did 2 weeks. We shut down 3 days before opening night. It was terrible. And now 27 months later, we are opening a brand new theater, AMT Theater on 45th Street. First preview June 16th. Tickets on sale, lovequirks.com/tickets. And we're really happy to finally open the show.
Mit Mazel, it's lovequirks.com to get your tickets. It's the AMT. Is that the one that Tony Sportiello and
that's Tony's theater, Tony and Al Tapper. We are so lucky we got in with them. It's going to be beautiful, and we are the first things in there christening the space.
Holla bye, holla. Now don't go away. You're staying.
I'm staying.
You're staying.
I'm staying. You're going to love me.
Keep singing. I'm going to go. People, you don't go. You're going to stay and watch more of Dave's Gone By with the Today Yesterday quiz with David Sheward and Leslie Hoban Blake and Seth Biesen-HERSH. Sing something. Just kill some time.
Oh, no. Love Works. What are the lyrics of that song? Anyone. Oh, my God. I don't know the lyrics to my own song. Anyone you date who you think is really great will soon start to demonstrate a love quirk. Anyone you meet who you think is pretty sweet probably wants to lick your feet. Such love quirks